So there's this episode of The Simpsons called Coming to Homerica from season 20, which I should point out aired on May 17, 2009, which happens to be the National Day of Norway, Norwegian Constitution Day. Whether that was intentional or just a happy accident, I genuinely can't say, but I choose to believe someone in the writer's room knew what they were doing. The premise is that Krusty the Clown gets told his burgers are the unhealthiest fast food in the world, so he adds a vegetarian sandwich to the menu.
Made from 100% wheat-fed barley.
Somehow it's a hit, but then half of Springfield gets food poisoning, and it turns out the tainted barley came from Ogdenville, the neighboring town that was originally settled by Norwegian immigrants. The barley industry collapses, and the Ogdenvillians are forced to leave their homes and come to Springfield looking for work. Springfield is initially welcoming. They hire the Ogdenvillians as day laborers. Everyone's getting along, but then the strain on public services starts to show.
Oofda! So many meters!
Step aside, Norwads. Watch how the natives ride Sky.
Bart crashes his skateboard into a bus, and Homer and Marge rush him to the hospital. The waiting room is packed with Ogdenvillians.
3 hours and we still can't see a doctor?
It's 'cause it's filled with all these Norwads.
We're out of English forms. You'll have to fill out a Norwegian one.
This is actually all real Norwegian, but I love that in between all these realistic medical conditions, they have one that just says decapitated. Homer goes to Moe's and finds it full of Norwegians drinking akevit, which is a very real Norwegian spirit that will absolutely knock you out if you don't know what you're doing.
How could you, Mo?
Hey, it's all about the King Harolds.
Homer, of course, does not know what he's drinking, downs a full mug, and shows up to work drunk the next morning. Mr. Burns fires him. So now Homer's unemployed, the town's resentful, and Mayor Quimby decides to close the borders. Chief Wiggum can't be bothered to enforce it himself, so he hands out guns and beer to a bunch of vigilantes, including Homer, Lenny, and Carl.
Springfield only has 3 cops.
Yeah, and Eddie's laid up because of his gout.
I also have gout, so I really feel for Eddie here. They try and fail to keep the Ogdenvillians out, and eventually decide to build a wall. A town border wall.
Yeah? Yeah?
Now do you see, Marge? Now do you see why we must build that fence?
Build it, homie! Make it as tall as the sky and deeper than hell!
Yeah?
The Ogdenvillians actually end up helping to build the wall because Springfield can't manage it on their own. And while they're working on it together, both sides realize they have more in common than they thought. When the wall is finished, Springfield misses their neighbors, and the Ogdenvillians come back through a door they'd built into the wall. The episode ends with a party and a shot of the Norwegian flag. The song is actually a traditional Norwegian hauling dance song called The Jumper, after the way hauling dance is performed by jumping up to try and kick a hat off a high stick. Coming to Homerica serves as a satirical allegory for the US-Mexico border debate. The episode mirrors the contentious political issues of migration and border security by making Springfield's struggling neighboring town, Ogdenville, the foreign source of migrants. Following an economic collapse in Ogdenville due to tainted barley, its citizens flock to Springfield seeking work. In response, Springfield's residents construct a massive wall to keep them out, echoing historical and contemporary debates over US-Mexico border security. The Springfield citizens form a volunteer border patrol to aggressively block and deport Ogdenvillians, satirizing real-world civilian border watch groups. Springfield businesses quickly realize they rely on the cheap labor of Ogdenville immigrants. This captures the dynamic of the US labor market, which often depends heavily on Mexican and Latin American labor, while simultaneously enforcing strict, sometimes hostile immigration laws. The Simpsons writers subverted the standard cultural narrative by making the displaced Ogdenvillians descendants of Norwegian immigrants, poking fun at historical Midwestern immigration, while still allowing the core themes of nativism, economic reliance, and border control to shine through. Shifting the immigrants to Norwegian descendants removes racial prejudice from the debate to focus purely on anti-immigrant sentiment and economic nationalism. By stripping away racial differences, the episode highlights how quickly communities turn hostile toward outsiders based solely on economics. Springfielders hate Ogdenvillians despite looking identical, proving that nativism often relies on creating an us versus them mentality regardless of race. The shift allows the show to critique the absurdity of border politics without alienating viewers or repeating harmful real-world racial stereotypes. Many media scholars and critics argue that this approach is flawed because it completely erases the foundational role that racism plays in real-world immigration debates. Replacing a marginalized group with white Norwegian-descended characters masks the structural racism, colorism, and xenophobia that Mexican and Latin American migrants actually face. It implies that anti-immigrant sentiment is purely economic or cultural. In reality, modern border politics are deeply intertwined with racial prejudice. By removing race, the episode makes a highly charged, painful human rights issue safe and comfortable for a mainstream audience to laugh at. White immigrants historically assimilated into American society much faster and faced fewer systemic barriers than non-white immigrants, a nuance the Allegory completely misses. Conversely, defenders of the episode's Allegory argue that the writers used these shifts to bypass audience defensiveness. By removing race, viewers who might normally double down on their political biases are forced to look at the raw absurdity of nativism and economic hypocrisy objectively. They could have picked any nationality, but they went with us. Mo serving aquavit, the Norwegian flags, and the whole Nordic settler backstory for Ogdenville is quite fun from a Norwegian perspective. While it is very likely that Ogdenville, which was first mentioned in the monorail song in season 4, was simply named after Ogden, Utah. In Norwegian, Ogden actually means and that. Ville means wild one or wanted to. But if the name was an intentional joke, I think it is more likely that they mixed the Norwegian with will, the English suffix for town, meaning the name Ogdenville means and that town, which makes sense in the context of this huckster listing off a bunch of towns he's put on the map with his railways. As a scholar of Frasier, I also really like this bit of the opening couch gag, Frasier and Sideshow Bob both being played by Kelsey Grammer. Thanks for watching, and since you've watched this far, please just press the like button. It makes a huge difference for basically no effort. Commenting and subscribing is obviously even better.
Oh, don't that glow down right good then?
Oh, yeah. Almost as good as barley is. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.